For the record, that one viewer is me. Safe to talk, right?
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I like staring at the stream and I can hear like the sound of you clicking on buttons, but
you can't hear
not
my
your
voice.
voice.
Alright, we'll start again. Welcome to the stream, everybody. This is RG Kyros from the Roving Guns organization and Star Citizen. If you've got any questions about the stream, just sing out. If you haven't managed to catch us while we're live, don't worry. You can catch us again tomorrow, sometime around 3 PM PDT. I'll stream most days, but not with a fixed schedule, so it could be any time. So just keep your eyes out. We're going to be doing some Star Citizen for about an hour today. We're going to start off with some racing just to warm up, and then we'll head into the verse and see what trouble we can get into.
At your service. Core system operational. Scan initiated. Contact.
Joining me in Discord here today is RG Keelan from the Arc Division in Roving Guns.
Hello.
He's a pretty good dude. He's done streaming in the past, and yeah, he's an all-round good dude. And you're the only one in the stream, so you just said hello to yourself. I gotta love it. Someone will,
yeah, but it might
most
be
people
later.
catch my replays. They don't usually catch me live.
Yeah, that was always the way it went down.
If you also didn't catch me live today, you can catch me in a few hours. I usually join up with Oxford and Sylvestris on their stream for the evening. A couple of hours there as well. A couple of good streamers. I will put a link in chat soon, so you can check them out. Do give them a follow. They are awesome guys. Or I should say they're an awesome couple. They're not both guys, obviously. That was a terrible corner. Well done, Kyros.
Everything is looking neat and tidy as these pilots show off why they're the best in the Empire.
Now, Keelan, you haven't got Star Citizen, have you?
No, unfortunately, my support when it was on the I've forgotten the name of the thing now.
Kickstarter?
Yes. What happened was there were some people that were very upset about it in one of our provinces about it not meeting launch expectations, and they petitioned our government with a suit. And the result was everyone that was part of that thing under the provincial thing, the company refunded our Kickstarter funds and took away our copies.
Most unfortunate. It's terrible. If I manage to secure myself a starter pack, I think you'll be first on the list there, Keelan.
That would be fantastic, especially given that I've got like a dozen people trying to beg me in there because, you know, I'm a farmer by trade. One of those things, apparently, in just about every game I go into, the moment someone mentions farming, they, you know, lose me, quote unquote.
Yes, indeed. Now, I did a little bit more looking into farming the last time I was actually streaming. I think it was towards the end of the stream. We were looking at the roadmap, and one of the things we noticed was that the Endeavour, which is the ship which has like a farming module, isn't actually on the roadmap yet. However, farming is, and I believe it was 3.0 3.1 or 3.3. So likely towards the end of next year, we will see the first mechanics of farming coming into the game. But it won't. I highly doubt it will be shipborne. I believe it'll either be installation based or on a planet. So that might
Apparently, it's
interest you.
going to be. Apparently, it's going to be both installation and on a planet for their initial test, with mobile coming later on, but on a much smaller scale.
Yes.
Shield system.
I do read the devlogs.
Oh, my landing gear's down.
With the season
Oh,
rapidly
fly,
approaching,
quick.
it's gonna be interesting
That was
to
an
see
interesting finish to the race there.
really establish
Yeah, so definitely we'll have to
Ow!
get you in.
if ever there was a time for
Yeah, that was one hell of a stop. We'll have to get you in for that, I think, because if anyone's going to have any useful input for SIG regarding farming, I think you're the man for the job.
big risk there. We'll have to see if they
It's one of those things that's actually, like, I don't give it much of a second thought for the fact that this happens, but apparently it's common enough in the games that I've played where people have actually been like, you need to get out of the hut. It's like, why? I've got, like a bazillion things going, and they're like, well, yes, and it's great that we're all fed and none of us have to work the fields, but dude, T-Rexes, rideable.
well, I'll be damned.
Yes.
Well, there are no guarantees in Murray.
Or when I was doing Project Zomboid, which I was doing for about a year, they were like, we're, perfectly fed, comfortably watered. We have absolutely no need for food. Could you please come help us chop some trees? Because this is a zombie game, not Harvest Moon.
Yes. Still, it's going to be pretty awesome. I really hope that with the farming mechanics, that SIG listens to the community and gets something that works really well, while still allowing people to experience the rest of the game at the same time. Because it's quite common, I know, with a lot of games like Ark, for example, and Life is Feudal and games like that, where farming can end up taking 100% of your time, and then you never get to experience the other things in the game that are so fulfilling and so much fun. So that's one thing that I would like to see from farming.
One of the things I'd also like to see from farming, because I've noticed a lot of games will go, we've introduced farming, we've got these mechanics for doing this part, and it fundamentally becomes disconnected from the other stuff.
Yes.
Commercial farming would be really, really nice, especially for a game like Star Citizen.
Yeah, like grow your crops, harvest them, and take them to market, kind of thing.
Well, that would be nice, but I'm meaning how about being able to grow, let's say, 16 fields with semi-automated production structures to produce grain, to produce biofuel, to provide fuel for rocket systems.
Yeah. We know that there are going to be commodities in the game by that point, so it'll be interesting to see if you're able to grow certain commodities and then trade them as well in that way, like biofuel, where you're on a planet and you're producing 100 units of biofuel, 100 freight units of biofuel every day, and you've got to get that shipped somewhere. So you create the job and you hire some haulers or get your organizations, industrial ships to come along, pick it up, take it to the station, sell it. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be one great approach, but I also know that one of the things groups have been talking about is being able to produce factories and stuff in Star Citizen, which can be used to produce munitions. Where do they get the rocket fuel? The farming could actually fulfill that role and make it interconnected to, it could be just as easy to go and pick some up from the market, but it would also be interesting to be able to see someone be able to produce the fuel for the rockets, or use ranching to produce fertilizer for low-grade explosives too. I'm using missiles as an example, but I'm meaning instead of it just being a commodity element, it could also be part of an integrated experience that's functionally optional without it being, ooh, that was a bit of a hard hit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, it would be, and a lot of the items, it wouldn't take much for them to go, okay, well, this particular ammunition requires this type of product, or like you've got to produce like synthetic fibers or something like that, and the players can help create the commodities in the game. There are of course going to be 9 NPCs to every one player, um, so you'll never reach a complete drought on an item, and that sort of helps drive the economy's demand. But you could have the players generating a significant amount of the commodities that the factories need, and that'd be a profit for certain industrious players, like yourself.
Yeah, very much so. That's usually where I've seen a lot of other games eventually go kind of off the rails in that regard. Is they'll like develop this thing where they'll be like, we have crafting, we have farming, we have resource production of like type X using Y weird mechanic, and as you go through it, you run into the problem where basically it's there, but it's so optional, it literally has zero effect on the game.
Yeah, it's
Having
like
it
zero
have,
relevance, but
yeah,
yeah,
having it actually have an effect, like it does in Arc, because there's a lot of things that you can make, but like half the crops cannot be produced in any way other than farming, and those crops are used to produce foods that allow you to have really big edges. Like there's a healing stew that is an absolute must if you're going to be going into cold areas, which again, like it uses stuff that needs to come from hunting, so you need players to kill animals. It's got stuff that comes from specialized farming. It's got stuff that comes from specialized gathering, and it requires someone to cook. Literally, it can involve, just if the process is being done on the mass production type style, where you're producing 50 to 100 in a batch, just for a day to make sure you've got the stuff that you need to go do one of the runs, can easily involve 6, 7, 8 players. And that is a very interactive way to bring it about. And I'm really hoping that they do it that way in this game as well.
yeah. Because if you can, you got the farmer on the ground floor. He's going to need supplies. He's going to need water or whatever he needs, fertilizer and stuff, shipped to the planet, let's say, to start off, to get the crops going. He's going to need to tend the crops. You're probably going to need someone to defend the installation if need be. So there's a marine, for example. Then you're going to need some logistics guys to take the fertilizer to the planet. You're going to need some logistics guys to take the final product from the planet to market. So yeah, you could definitely involve quite a few people. And then there's also, I would imagine that there might be some level of research and development with farming as well.
Crossbreeding.
Yeah.
Genetic. We're talking about an advanced sci-fi universe. Genetic
Yeah.
engineering and specializing or hybridizing your plants would make perfect sense, especially if you need to produce a plant that for example, needs to produce a high amount of nitrates for the production of explosives to put in missile warheads, for example.
Yeah. And with the fidelity that this game is going, I would expect that kind of depth from the farming system.
I would expect them to take a lot of time to work out that that's the kind of thing that can be done. Just because first they're going to have to make sure that, people aren't running around doing the farming with their legs coming out of their ears, like I have seen in several patch versions.
Yes. Yes indeed.
That's one of the things I actually do like about how they've approached patching in this. I've noticed with some of the other ones, like Arc, they'll patch new content in as they're patching like other stuff, and the result is certain bugs get left in really low priority. When they produce a patch, the next like 5 or 6 patches are pure bug stomping, and I think that's a really good approach because it makes sure that they've got their core dynamics working the way they want before they move to adding new content that could add further complications.
Yeah, they're getting the mechanics of the game sorted before they try and add content. So they're prioritizing the mechanics right now because they're still building the game, and that is a really good approach, because if the mechanics not working, your game's shit. Doesn't matter how much content you throw in there.
Not everyone can pull off a troika.
Yeah. Yeah, and the 2.6 patch, which is the Star Marine, is a massive, massive update to all of the player models. So I think a lot of the bugs to do with the player character and the synchronization and stuff like that will disappear, because I mean we're just using a first-person mode that is still very basic. I think we've been using the same first-person codes. I don't know what the word is, but we're still using the same first-person stuff that we saw when I think it was the hangar module launched. They've just updated the models, and that's it. From like
Well,
1.0, because
they did
yeah,
they did add emotes,
they did add emotes. Yes, yeah, they did a bit of
which
mocap
is
for the existing character.
yeah, and I remember the emotes being added specifically because I'm still surprised people didn't realize this until like 2.4. But if you hold a machine gun in your hand and salute, which was an emote added a little while back, the machine gun would still fire.
Yes, yes, that was I think it was like the number 1 bug I put in that video. There's a dude saluting, and he pulls the trigger, and he actually shoots one of his teammates.
Yeah,
It was brilliant.
I've seen a couple of those on a couple of people's streams where they're like, "Why did this happen?" And it's like, I've seen coding do weird stuff like that before too. At least they don't skate, which is one of the things that so many games have made as a mistake. The one thing I can say about it is the characters never skated.
Yeah, his foot is on the ground in that position. Is that what you mean? And like it doesn't slide around.
Contact.
There's that. There's also the thing where players will go running down a hall, but because of minor syncing issues in a lot of games, what they'll do is they'll move their legs really slowly, even though from their actual movement is quick, which makes it look like they're moving around on ice skates.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
It's sort of like it's very similar to the running in place bug, except in slow motion.
Where would I'm just going to go back to the farming topic we were on earlier.
Yep, that's fine.
Where would you prefer to farm yourself? Would it be on a spaceship, on a space station, or on a planet?
Definitely on a space station because there's modular expansion and pretty stars.
Yes.
The thing I think I like the best about the space station is like if you're gonna do sci-fi farming, I don't want to be Uncle Owen in the desert with the moisture things.
Oh,
I
the
want to
moisture farmers from
be like
Tatooine. Yeah.
yes, yeah. I would prefer to be the rose gardeners from Sakai no Senki.
You might have to
The
explain what that is if some people don't know what it is.
There was a Japanese manga and anime series, which I believe in English is translated as Crest of the Stars and Banner of the Stars. And the royal family of one of the factions basically, the one faction spends all of their time in space. They live in space, they find the idea of setting foot on a planet to be very strange, and they rule over thousands of worlds, sort of. Not really, they're independent, they just can't go to space without, the help of the Ob. The Ob buy, trade, sell, move cargo, but for their own needs and interests. Not necessarily like, hey, we don't need food, but more of a, hey, we can sort of do this thing which can contribute in some small way to the overall economy. One of the people had a rose garden for making roses because, warships need flowers. Warships need to be pretty too.
Yes.
And so they had an
You don't think
installation.
those flowers in the 890 jump come free, do you? You know, gotta have
Exactly.
roses.
Someone has to grow them and stuff. And in the Ob universe, they have special centralized dome structures rotating domes too, because why waste the gravity, or why waste the energy on gravity when you can literally use centrifugal motion in this case? And they grow rose beds and flower beds and sunflowers and stuff for fun, for profit, for making their warships prettier, the whole 9 yards. And they're done in like really cool, like sci-fi for the early 2000s kind of way. And it's one of those things where like if I'm going to be playing a sci-fi game with farming, the farming should be pretty darn sci-fi.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's true.
It's ironically the only thing that I really heavily ask for out of my sci-fi games. If they're going to be doing crafting, the crafting should be sci-fi.
Contact.
Yes.
You've done that race twice now. Are you doing it a third time?
With the
Yeah, I'm
season
going to do one more.
rapidly approaching, it's going to
This
be
one.
interesting to see who, if anyone, really establishes themselves.
Let's see
as
if
the
he can
race
miss
of the
all the structures this time.
pilots getting ready to
Yep.
launch.
Yeah, because I haven't had a flawless race yet.
Scan initiated. Contact.
They're off.
Contact.
All right.
So what kind of ship are you flying?
This is the 350R from Origin Jump Works. It is the fastest ship in a straight line currently. It is not the most maneuverable ship in the game. That title is firmly with the M50. But I have wanted a 350R for a long time, and it came available in the anniversary sale. So I grabbed it, and I'm really enjoying flying it. I really am. It's a beautiful ship, and it's due for a new. I think it was they call it a rework or another pass to sort of update it. The new material tech, new modeling tech.
Cool.
Contact.
So I can't wait for that to come in either. Oh, and it's I got it on lifetime insurance too, because they had the Origin 85X concept sale going at the same time. I was able to grab the Origin 85X LTI token, and then I just upgraded the 85X into the 350R, and presto,
Cool.
lifetime insurance racing ship. And crash it as much as I like. Hey, Krimus, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the channel. I should say welcome back.
Hey, Krimus.
He's my trusty moderator, Krimus here. He does a much better job than I do of fixing things that break. We were just talking about farming, Krimus.
Proximity.
The MCR's recently implemented
Initiated.
enhanced safety
Contact.
protocols are on full display.
I'm waiting to see if he types.
Initiated. Contact.
I'm sure he's cooking something up. With the installation farming, it makes me think that it might. There'll be obviously benefits and drawbacks to each type of farming, whether you're mobile. Obviously, if you're mobile on a spaceship, you're not going to be able to do mass volume, but you might be able to, say, grow like very difficult to grow things, like if you have to be get a certain type of radiation on the planet at a certain
specialized.
time. Yeah, like highly specialized farming. Yeah, space drugs. Like to get the most potent space weed, you have to go and grow it next to a black hole so it gets more potent or something. I don't know. Or do it with a certain type of radiation. And then your installations potentially might be more expensive. And I don't know. Maybe you could. It'll obviously be a more expensive thing to sort of build with the infrastructure thing, because it's got to be in a vacuum, and you gotta do it that way. But you might be able to expand more, and you don't have weather to worry about. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the weather. It's all temperature controlled. So
The other advantage.
Yeah.
Sorry, the other advantage to having the smaller operation on a mobile ship is with an installation, you can have modularity, you can do segmentation, you can do expansion elements, but you have to have defenses, turrets, sensor systems for protection. Whereas with the ship, yeah, you can't grow as much, you can't do as much. You might need to go to certain places for doing certain specialty things. But if someone jumps out to attack you, you can run, which you can't do in the other two.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, like you say, there's a lot more cost involved with running an installation in space, as opposed to, say, running it on a planet, which might be a hell of a lot cheaper to expand. You've got land. You might have to fertilize it, and you might have to ship in water, but the installation costs are going to be significantly lower. You don't have to worry so much about defense because you're on a planet. You're harder to detect than something in space with a thermal signature. And you can basically you wouldn't have a size restriction based on the ability to build infrastructure. You would have obviously some drawbacks there as well. Weather would be one. If you got you wouldn't want to farm on a planet that is having constantly terrible weather or acid storms or something like that, because you'd have to build infrastructure again to counter that. But let's say you could do say if there's a fairly high yield but low, like a crop that you can grow lots of, but it's not worth a hell of a lot of money individually. So it wouldn't be efficient to do it on a space station with the high costs of running the space station. You'd want to get good yield crops with a high profit margin. Whereas on a planet, you might be able to get something that has a really high yield and a fairly low cost that you can just grow all over the place. And because it would depend on the type of farming, I guess you're looking for. Are you doing bulk, or are you doing sort of a bit of half and half, or are you doing highly specialized? I think that would be quite cool to see. What do you think?
I can tell you're missing one of the things which tells me you're not accustomed to doing farming in multiple environments. And
Yep.
here's where my farming expertise from hundreds of games come in. Second advantage of a station over a planet. Planet has the advantage: cheap land, usually a breathable, workable atmosphere, so you have to have less primary infrastructure and recycling and stuff like that.
Yep.
Planets tend to have anywhere from 10 to 20 hours without sunlight. Stations can just be parked in the way to get 100% sunlight 100% of the time.
This is true. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Like, it's not just the weather that makes the planet disadvantageous, it's the fact it rotates.
Yes, yeah. With a space station, you could just constantly have the radiation from the star growing your crops. So maybe crops will grow faster on a space station. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
And they would also be able to do their work far more consistently. I mean, they do technically have to rest, but you can elect and control the schedule of the rest, as opposed to having to time everything around the movement and the seasons on the planets.
Correct. I do know that they have said that they won't be doing seasons initially in the game, but it is something to consider perhaps later on down the road. Yeah, you don't have to worry about seasons at all. And the ability to, choose when you've got sunlight and when you don't have sunlight. It allows you to take a lot more control over the farming process.
Yeah, any planet that they're going to have a rotational thing is going to have a variant of seasons. It's just the simplest form tends to be 2 seasons: the I'm growing stuff season and the I'm harvesting stuff season.
Yeah.
But yeah, the station will give you a lot more control at the cost of greater expense, greater management, and greater resource importation.
Although, and here's another thing too, the benefit of the space station is a lot of the largest haulers in the game cannot land on a planet.
Yeah, which is another great advantage to having the stuff on a station. Especially given, going up and down, because as far as I know, space elevators aren't actually a thing in this at the moment.
That's correct, yeah. I don't think we have any space elevators. We still use shuttles.
Which means getting everything up and down from the surface involves lots and lots of shuttle runs if you do it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got it in orbit, being the guy who farms in literally everything I've ever played that has farming, I'd end up just, like, here's a module that's a warehouse. It's right next to the dock. You guys, come. It's like, okay, so what do we? There's big boxes over there. Get them out of my way so I can put more in.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
It's got efficiency in a couple of other ways as well for the ship, though, because with the ship being able to move, I can basically park from dock to dock, dropping off resources, or from station to station, and I can actually, like, while I'm on my way somewhere, if someone needs a particular thing, I might be able to set side spaces to be able to grow that in situ while heading to the location where they need the stuff to be dropped off.
Yeah. I hope they do it like that, because it could also be like quite a good org thing. For example, like farming on a planet, it's cheap. A solo player could probably do it by himself. Doing the highly specialized stuff in the Endeavour or other ships that they come out with later on, that could be done by a small team of players. 3 or 4 guys running an Endeavour. And then, because of the higher cost of the installation, you'd have like a medium to large size organization required to, keep that installation running at max potential, at its maximum profitability. And so it would sort of bring in more. So you got like the guy who just wants to be the solo farmer, and he lives on the planet and he produces his goods and makes a profit by himself. Yeah, versus the industrial commercial farming of an organization on a spaceborne installation. I think that would be really cool, because at the core of it, it's a multiplayer game, and I'd really like to see like a multiplayer aspect in the farming.
Yes, very much so, especially in a multiplayer game, because that's one of the things that a lot of other games have managed to do in such a way as to effectively, like, nerf their own thing, is making crafting in such a way that it either doesn't develop an economy because it's of a type and difficulty that players essentially use off characters that just sit around and bot the stuff out, or don't have enough interconnectedness to make it something that player participation is a thing, or they go the route where they've made it so complex, trying to make it something worthwhile, but they've made it really complex on an individual level, such that the 2/5 rule that used to be the primary rule of the original MMOs for how player bases should work. The rule was 1/5 should be producing the base product, 1/5 should be refining the product, and everyone else should be using it.
Yeah.
So 2/5 of your player base would be crafting at any given time. Not 100% of their time, just like, if you spent like an hour a day doing crafting, that was your contribution to the 2/5. And something involving that kind of mentality really does help encourage player retention and preventing churn in that regard.
Yeah, and you don't want it to be too grindy either.
Right, which was part of the first point.
Yeah, because it's like repetition gets boring after a while.
The thing is, it shouldn't be too repetitive, but you expect some degree of repetitiveness, but there's ways around making the repetitiveness boring. Says the guy who literally grows crops in every game.
Yes, indeed. But that's okay. Expertise is important.
It's just it's one of those things I've noticed, like the easiest way for handling it for crops, ironically, and Ark did this correctly, is you plant them, you irrigate them, you occasionally fertilize them, and you come back every once in a while. It's not a labor-intensive project. It's just that very few people seem to really devote themselves to it, because what they'll do is they'll set up like a couple of plots for a couple of things and then they'll wander off. And when I've been on some of the PvE official servers, and people are like, well, we need someone to look after the farms, and then they come back the next day and I've got like 136 plots across 3 tiered levels with multi-point watering systems and storage systems set off to the one side using whatever system they're working with for holding onto stuff. I usually use preserving bins because I really don't want to waste the electricity, but I've had people just come on and go like, how are you even doing this? And then like a week later, they're doing the whole, come on, you have to come outside. But the crops. No, dude, rideable T-Rexes.
Yes. I don't think there'll be any rideable T-Rexes in Star Citizen, unless that's confirmed. Can someone go and check that, please? Maybe rideable
There's a
sandworms.
Corvette named T-Rex.
Maybe rideable sandworms. Strap a saddle to it. What do you think, Crimus? We'll get it used to eating our space weed. We'll train it with space weed, so it doesn't try and eat us. And then we'll strap a saddle on it and we'll ride it into an enemy encampment, and we'll use the space worm against them.
Bless the coming and the going of the Maker. You've taken a lot of hits there.
I have, but I have a very strong shield in this saber.
0 hostile contacts remaining.
It's a good ship.
Oh, I'm not talking about like being shot at. I'm meaning like you've hit like 7 rocks I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Do shields protect you from those impacts as well?
No. The bouncing off. I've been hitting a lot of the debris from the enemy ships, which does sort of. It has fairly low mass, so it kind of, you hit it and it bounces off. Sometimes it can get stuck in your ship, like through the geometry, and that will wreck you. But yeah, if you crash into an asteroid, you are absolutely going to take damage, just depending on the speed. Like, you can set down nice and softly on it with your landing gear out and you'll be fine. You can bump into things. It's really dependent on the velocity of the collision. Some of the items, like the bits from the ships, don't have that kind of code attached to them, I guess. So, like, generally you can bump into them. It's only when they get stuck in your geometry that you can take damage. Like that.
I hadn't actually seen anyone casually slam into rocks that often. So yeah. I was cringing every time I saw it happen.
Yes. There's new asteroid tech coming. These asteroids are just hand-placed like items with a bit of geometry to stop you flying through them. Come here, Vandal.
Yeah, and it looks great. But part of the reason why it looks great is because it's hand-crafted. Part of the thing that makes it a little nerve-wracking is when you see your ship go kaboing off of one of them.
Yeah, it's like, it's always got, it's that sort of tick like that there. It just like stop, ship disappears, and there's actually a human in the ship, not a Vandal. And that's actually really interesting. He doesn't have a head. You see that? No head.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's freaky.
Just so you know, your channel bot is deleting its own link.
Really? Okay. Stupid bot.
We've all had problems with our channel bots.
Yep. I'm gonna change to deep bot. Brainbot's good, but it's not good enough.
The one I used to use, which I know for a fact is no longer in use, is P-Bot-E. The guy who made it was a fan of an old show called Peabody and Sherman.
Yep.
And it was good for a lot of things, but apparently when you put the link filter on, it would filter itself if the link violated the rules inside of it, which was really, really funny, because it also had a, you have violated this rule 10 times, you are banned.
Ban itself. Oh dear.
Yes, it would.
I just had another thought about farming.
Mhm.
If you're at an installation, and you're doing that kind of farming, and you've got the big runs with the haulers, it is also possible for pirates to learn the hauling runs, or if they're smart enough, like they might be able to intercept the haulers. So the haulers are going to need protection as well.
Yeah.
Elite units eliminated.
And that presents not just opportunities for the pirates to do stuff, but if you stop and think about it, if you're growing something that's particularly valuable and it's been a while since you've had a run, you might need to hire professional escorts.
Yeah. Or if your org's large enough, and you've got people in there who are the fighter pilots, they could also get involved in the farming process as well, instead of just running missions all day.
Yeah, I'm going to be absolutely frank on that point. As lovely as that idea is, the tendency for those guys is, rather than being involved in the farming, they'll go to the bangy, bangy, clangy, clangy hammer type crafting element, which technically is more advantageous for the farmer, because if we need something built or added or repaired, those are the guys who are usually sticking around going, so what can I do? And you point out like 11 jobs and they're done like by the time you're done watering your crops.
Yeah. What I mean is, like, the guys that are the fighter pilots, although they're not directly involved in the farming and they might want nothing to do with growing crops, they can still be involved in the process of, the farming process, but more sort of towards the end of the process where, you're shipping to market and the crates have to be protected, in that regard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just also the ones that tend to be the fighter pilots, they also like to do things like tinkering.
Yeah, like
figuring out
overclocking their ships
configurations.
and things, what's the
Yeah,
best way
yeah,
to, yeah.
and the thing that makes that really advantageous in games that have like modular production systems is the person who does the stuff like the straight up farming will, usually just having like, let's say 3 people handling the farming in something that's a relatively farming intensive thing, having that one guy who's usually out, like keeping the orcs off the walls or whatnot, who, and I'm specifically thinking Warhammer 40k, that's why I went to orcs there, will also be the guys that will come back and will, like grease up the doors and help attach the panels for the new room and stuff like that.
Yeah, because you're not going to be raided all the time. They're going to have some spare time, and they
And
might
it's a
wanna,
it's a non-repetitive busy work task.
yeah. So I think we can expect a lot more. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize just how much of a big thing farming is potentially going to be in a game with this kind of depth. It's something to really have a good think about.
And especially if you've got really good developers that recognize what this kind of thing can be like. Like, I remember people who used to say, like some of the space games would never really get very far in the crafting department because you basically all be like buying components and stuff. And then games like Eve and that one version of Freelancer came along where you were mining asteroids for resources and could use them to build things like missiles and produce fuel from ice mining, which resulted in player-owned stations and developed not just its own economy but its own infrastructure within the world. And if you do that with mining in the game and with farming and with energy harvesting, you've got basically the makings of a fantastic, very lively world, even when you're only dealing with 10% of the population as the thinking element of the process. It's something that can really make the universe come alive.
And that thinking process, that's what you have when you're not playing the game. You're thinking about how's the best way to maximize my crops, what's the best way to maximize my weapon loadout. You'll be at work or something like that, and it engages you with the game even when you're not playing the game. that kind of intellectual depth is really important and can create a massive amount of interest. And I'm going to use the word addiction here, but it's not quite the right word. Where you know,
Compulsion.
compulsion, yeah. It's
The bleep was
so
that?
brilliant. I don't know.
I just saw the world explode into honeycombs.
Oh, that was weird. I don't know. That's all good.
You didn't see that on your screen?
No, I did not.
You shot something and like the world lit up in like blue hexagon right there. Like
Oh,
apparently 10 seconds ago.
gotcha. Okay, so because I'm in a simulation, there's like a game
World
area,
border.
a world border. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
world border.
Danger. System
And
overheating.
I've lost all my guns. I've overheated them and they've fallen off. But that's right. I think we'll wrap up the stream there. That's given us a lot to sort of think about and digest. I will upload this one to YouTube because I think it's a fantastic discussion we've had today. Thank you, RG Keelan.
You're welcome.
It's always good. Special guest RG Keelan. And if anyone's interested in joining up with the Roving Guns organisation, you can find a link in the channel down below. I'll also put a link on the YouTube video for you guys as well. Be sure to tune in next time. You can catch us live most of the times around 3 p.m. PDT every day of the week. Alright. Fly safe and we'll see you in the verse.